MTN CEO remains very positive about investing in Nigeria despite the current challenges. And Tanzania power firm asked to pay Standard Chartered $148 million. Plus, Trafigura loses last big Angola oil deal as new president shakes up sector. It's the midweek edition of Business Incorporated. Thank you for joining us. I'm Chimezi Obi Iwagu. Let's get the show started now with the markets. And market indices here in Africa were low at intraday, with Egypt leading losses. The EGX 30 was down 0.60%. In South Africa, the JSE index was down 0.10%. And here in Nigeria, the bears maintained their hold, pushing the index down 0.44% at midday. Kenya closed in the red on Tuesday. In the Middle East, sentiments were also negative at intraday. However, Qatar bucked the trend to trade higher by 0.82%. Abu Dhabi was the highest loser, down 1.17%. Dubai came down 0.82%, and Saudi came down 0.65%. And bourses in Europe traded slightly higher in the morning, despite further tensions between the U.S. and China surrounding trade. Today, the European Commission President Jean-Claude Juncker delivered his last State of the Union speech. Let's talk to Conrad, my colleague in Frankfurt, for details of this speech and more. Hello, Conrad. Good afternoon. Good to have you back on the show again today.
Good afternoon, Jimmy. I'm proud to be back on Channels TV. Good to see you again.
Right. Now, it's a busy day in the European Parliament as EU Commission Chief Jean-Claude Juncker has given the last State of the Union address of his tenure. What has he talked about, and what's most important for the markets in terms of this EU Parliament session?
Well, Jimmy, Juncker actually had to say a lot about Africa by demanding that the European Union and Africa as a continent change all those small bilateral trade agreements that the European Union has with individual African countries into one single large trade agreement with the whole continent. And by saying this, of course, Jean-Claude Juncker, without giving the impression of getting too much involved in internal African affairs, made clear that he and his colleagues at the European Union's Commission favor a more unified African continent. In terms of the financial sector, well, Juncker says that he wants to see the euro, the role of our common currency, strengthened. He didn't, talk about particular new measures, but Juncker said that he thinks the euro has to become the face and the tool of European sovereignty. And that's basically underlying that the euro is the one major point of, unification in the Union. According to the treaties of the European Union, it's supposed to enhance common economic standards, common standards of living in the European Union. Of course, we're far away from this, but this is what the treaties want, and this is where we're heading.
All right, let's look at trading today generally. Trade, of course, trade concern has remained a major topic there. In Asia, stocks fell to a 14-month low, still based on trade concerns. What's the mood like in Frankfurt today? Well, I can see behind you there the zigzag movement of the DAX.
Well, yes, look at this. It's really another very, very jittery trading day. And if we compare this to Asia, it's still not bad. The German share index DAX is holding a little bit above the unchanged line. It's not as low as the markets plunged in Asia, in particular, of course, in China. But those concerns, those announcements by the Chinese government to go to the WTO and complain about the United States, of course, are something that sort of contributes to those jitters, especially also As you know, the Indian rupee has fallen to a new record low. That reminded everyone on the markets how the concerns about China, about Asia, are having a negative impact on the currencies of many emerging economies. And let's not forget, tomorrow Turkey, the central bank there, will come out with a decision what to do about interest rates. Everyone on the financial markets expects or anticipates that the Reserve Bank will increase the interest rates for Turkey, given the high inflation in the country. Of course, everyone also knows that this is not something that the Turkish government wants to see. On Friday, we've got the same scenario in Russia, the central bank there, the Bank Rassi, the Russian Reserve Bank, is expected to increase interest rates, ending a 3-year cycle of lower interest rates. Also something that the government in Moscow does not want to see, but financial markets really are focusing on that. They say that financial stability depends on this, and that it's really important that the reserve banks remain independent. All this is on investors' minds, and all this contributes to this, jittery trading day.
All right, let's look at some corporates. Apple is expecting new iPhone models today, maybe an update of its Apple Watch. Is this kind of event able to make markets enthusiastic like in the past?
No, probably not. Most analysts for Apple are convinced that the times are over where people like Steve Jobs, the famous ex-CEO of Apple, stepped in front of the public and announced just one more thing. Remember, that were his words when he presented the first ever iPhone, and it was not just one more thing, it was the biggest thing that Apple ever presented. Those times are likely to be over since Apple has crossed $1 trillion in value. The focus on the company is even more to keep it there, and to keep the Apple sphere happy, those billions of faithful fans worldwide that want to use their Apple devices and that want to use more and more services. Apple has also entered the streaming business a bit late, but still, it's this year has invested $1 billion for TV, for video content. People like Oprah Winfrey are contributing there. Steven Spielberg is one of the contractors. This is the business that Apple is focusing on much more instead of hardware. And of course, as you know, the hardware business for Apple has become more problematic with the threat from Washington, the US president really making it much more difficult for Apple and its supply chains, which depend heavily on positive possibilities of exchanging goods and services over borders between China and the US. That's not possible the way it was anymore, so this business has become more difficult. The more, of course, now the focus of the markets on, new services, new ideas for the Apple sphere.
All right, thank you very much for your time, Conrad. Let's keep a tab on those interest rate decisions coming up on Thursday and Friday. Enjoy the rest of the day.